Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Pet Haven Fun. In today's video, I will be talking about bunny desexing. I will cover why I think the procedure is worth having, what you need to know before, and what you need to do after. Lastly, I'll talk about kind of covering the nerves of the procedure from the owner's perspective. So let's just jump straight to it. So I think desexing your bunny is worth it because I think the positives outweigh the risks. The risk is small that, there's complications to the surgery because rabbits are so little. But then at the same time, the same thing could happen when you bring a little 8-week-old kitten in or a small puppy in that's 8 weeks old to get desexed. And lots of rescues do this because lots of rescues support early desexing of rabbits and kittens so that they don't go out and breed. And so that brings me on to my second point. Desexing is worth it because if you want to bond your bunny with a friend, or if your bunny is ever possibly going to be in a situation where they're with another bunny of another gender, you don't want them to have babies because then you're left with another number of bunnies that you need to look after or do something with, or that will just eventually end back up in a rescue, and we don't want to contribute to that problem. And the last one is desexing a bunny actually helps to mitigate their risk of certain cancers later down the track a little bit. And so I think that for that reason, it makes it worth it, because the last thing you want to do is have a bunny that's a couple of years old and they die because of cancer, which could have been prevented if they had been desexed when they were young. So now I'm going to talk about before, the things you need to do before the operation. And the very, very first thing is, if you've decided that desexing your bunny is something that you're going to do, please find a rabbit-savvy vet. This makes their chances of the outcomes being positive much, much higher, because rabbit-savvy vets know how rabbits work, whereas just a regular vet that does dogs or cats may not, because rabbits are different in that, you can't fast them and they're so tiny, and anesthetic is a greater risk to them and stuff like that. So the Rabbit Rescue Sanctuary website, I know that they have a list of rabbit-savvy vets that all their bunnies go to. But obviously, if you're not in New South Wales, then that doesn't help you. So do your own research and find a rabbit-savvy vet. Once you've found your rabbit-savvy vet, possibly consider talking to them about getting your rabbit's vaccination and some microchipping done at the same time. I know with the sanctuary where I got my bunny Leia from, they just do the works and they do everything at the same time. So when the bunny gets desexed, they also get vaccinated and microchipped and health checked and everything else like that. So it's all done in the one day, and I don't have to, take her back out to the vet multiple times within a month just to get all these different things done, which is just going to stress her out further. The second thing is, make sure before they go to get their desexing surgery done that they're healthy. So make sure they're eating and pooping as normal and there's no warning signs of some other illness, because the last thing you want is for a sick rabbit to then go into a surgery. So just make sure you watch out for those things. The third thing, which you should be told by the vet when you make the appointment, is that you should never fast your rabbit. So if the vet tells you that your rabbit should fast before their surgery, that's wrong, and make sure you tell them that, and maybe consider going with another vet who understands how rabbits work better. So make sure they have their dinner the night before, they still have their unlimited hay, and even unlimited hay with them in the carrier on the car ride, even though they're unlikely to eat it because car rides are stressful, still have it there for them. Fourthly, you need to make sure you bring food with you. Most vets will tell you this because they want them to eat and poop, or at least start eating and pooping a little bit before they go, and they need to test if they're going to eat, because if they're not eating, that's a problem. So I bought basically 3 different things. I bought hay, because hay is really good for them, and really that's what you want them to be eating. I bought pellets, because that's kind of a really good tester for if they're going to eat a meal type thing. And then I bought her favourite treat, because if they couldn't get her to eat anything else, at least if she ate her favourite treat, they know that she's not refusing all food altogether, and maybe she's just kind of coming around slowly. And then the last thing is, when you get in the car on the day, try and make the car ride as stress-free as possible. They're going to have a really stressful day. They're going in a car, they're getting a big surgery, and then they're coming back home in the car. It's a big day, and so with all those stresses, you want to minimize the car ride stress as much as possible. just try and keep them in a cool, dark space in a little carrier. Maybe put the carrier in their area the nights before if it's not a carrier that, they're going to chew up, so that they can kind of get used to that space. And maybe if your rabbit likes calming music, you can play that. Or put a blanket over the carrier on your way in the car so that there's not all these lights and sounds going around. It just might help to keep them calmer. After you've dropped your bunny off for their desexing surgery, you will then return home and await a call from the vet, which will tell you that you can come and pick up your rabbit, or that, you can come and pick up your rabbit at X time, whenever they'll be ready. So, when you arrive to pick your rabbit up, you want to ask and make sure you collect a couple of things. So firstly, you want to ask whether they've eaten or pooped, or both, hopefully. Normally, a rabbit savvy vet will keep the rabbit and make sure they've at least eaten something and they've done a poop, so that their GI tract is moving and they know that. If, however, in the case that they don't, or your rabbit hasn't eaten much, or maybe they've only done one poop, you need to know this so that you can keep an eye out at home to make sure they start eating and they start pooping properly. Now, don't freak out if they don't eat heaps and heaps of food straight away. I had the same thing happen to me, and this is why the next things are really important to make sure. You need to make sure that you get at least 3 days of pain medication to give them. If your rabbit's in pain, they're not going to eat. Normally, they should come in a little syringe, and you'll get at least 3 individual syringes, and it'll already be measured out for you, so you don't have to worry about it. You just have to give your bunny the medication. If you're lucky and you're anything like me, the bunny should take to it like a champ and like it a little bit too much.
Leia, it's empty.
So the next thing you want to ask for is some kind of critical care or emergency food that you can give to a rabbit if they're not really eating. And this is pretty common. I had this happen to me, except I didn't have the food given to me from the vet. And so at 8 p.m. at night, under lockdown restrictions where I was supposed to have a curfew, I had to find somewhere that I could, go and pick up this critical care from, and it was stressful. Luckily, obviously, being out after the curfew is fine as long as it's an emergency, and obviously that would be considered an emergency, but make sure you get it from the vet so you don't have to stress about it. If you don't know how to feed your bunny critical care or emergency food, look it up. There are so many videos out there on it. Normally you just wrap your bunny up and you syringe feed it to them. If they will take it from a spoon, try that first, because that saves the stress to both of you of having to syringe feed. But if you can't feed them off a spoon, then look up. There's so many videos out there on how to do it. Hopefully you'll only need to do this for the first couple of hours, and you'll only have to give it to them once or twice until they start eating better on their own again and you start seeing poops. Now, the other thing you want to ask for is a set of instructions. You want to ask for some instructions that can be given to you on basically what you're supposed to do. Hopefully the vet will either explain it to you or give you something printed out. I got a sheet of paper printed out with instructions on it of kind of what to look out for, and was told what to do, etc., etc. But I will cover a little bit of this in the next section of the video that's about to come. But obviously your vet knows best, and so getting that information from them is the most helpful because they're a vet, I'm not. So now you've got your bunny and you've got to take them home and look after them while they recover. So again, on the way home, try and make sure the car ride is as stress-free as possible. They've been through a lot, it's been a big day, and the last thing they need is a stressful car ride home. Once you get home, you need a small space like an X pen or a pop-up pen of some kind, something that you can keep your bunny in that is a small space to keep them quiet. And it should be for about the next 10 days, but your vet will have told you probably about how long they need to be kept quiet for. This is to stop them binking and zooming around, because they don't understand and you don't want them to pop their stitches out. So keep them nice and quiet and calm. Now, place the carrier that you had them in the car into this playpen area so that obviously they can come out in their own time. Don't force them out. If they feel safe in the carrier and they just want to nap in there, it's completely fine. Don't force them out. They're already stressed enough. And make sure you have some kind of cover, or you can close the door or turn the lights off in the room so it's nice and dark and calm and quiet in there for them. Now, the next thing you want to watch out for is over the next 24 hours, they should start to poop and eat again. Obviously, if they're not eating, critical care. If they're not pooping within 24 hours, call the vet, talk to the vet, go to an emergency vet, do something about it. Obviously, if they haven't pooped at all, that's an emergency. They need to be pooping. Take them to an emergency vet. If you're just worried and you're not sure what to do, call the vet that you had the surgery at, and they will tell you what you need to do from there. Obviously, when they first start eating and pooping, their eating habits and pooping habits, they won't be as normal. They're probably not going to eat as much as what they normally would, and their poops may be a bit strange looking, a bit smaller, a bit kind of weird in shape, and not kind of as much as normal. Don't freak out. It will return to normal over the next couple of days. But remember, again, if you're worried, call the vet and they will be able to tell you. The next thing is, make sure you give them the pain medication for the given amount of days. So if you were given 3 days, give them 3 days. If you were given 5 days, give them the 5 days, even if you don't think they need it. So even if they look like, oh, they look fine, they look their happy, normal self, they don't look in pain, you know, it's about time to give them their medication, so they should be sore. Make sure you give it to them. You don't know that they're not in pain, you know. For all you know, in the next 2 hours, once you're off in bed, you know, they could be really sore and you won't know because you'll be sleeping. And rabbits are prey animals, so they hide when something is wrong incredibly well, because obviously they don't want all these animals to be out to get them because they're weaker. So make sure you give it to them, even if they look like they're doing really well. I know my bun, after the first, between 24 and 48 hours, she looked fine. By the time I got to the third day, I was like, it looks like she doesn't really need to have the pain medication tonight. But obviously, I gave it to her anyway, because the last thing I want is for her to be in pain and not eating and not pooping, because that's incredibly dangerous. So the next thing is, you should have been told to check their surgical site. So where they've had the incision done or any stitches or anything done, you need to check it. You need to check it for any signs of redness, lumpiness, swelling, anything like that. The vet should have told you what to look out for. If you don't, ring and say, hey, should I do this? How should I do this? What should I look out for? And the vet should happily explain it to you. Now, if you don't know where to look or how to check, I'll show you right now. This is Leia, my beautiful model. Now, she's past the 10-day mark, so her site is small and healing well, but I can show you about where it is and what to look for and how to do it, basically. She obviously doesn't like being picked up or being held much, so I'm going to try and do this quick, and I'm patting her to keep her calm. Now, she's a girl rabbit, so if it were a boy, the site spot may be slightly different. That's fine. It should be under their belly somewhere, and they probably shaved the area, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. So you should pick her up like you'd pick a bunny up, hand under the bum and under the front. So I'm going to go under the front and under the bum here, which is tricky because her bum's stuck under me. And then you should be able to lift her up like this. Now, obviously, she doesn't like this, but you should be able to see in here. Her hair is growing back a bit, but her surgical site is here. You probably can't see it very well on the camera, but I can look down, see it, go, yep, that looks good, and then let it down. So you should be able to see it there somewhere. Again, you pick them up, you should be able to see the surgical site is right about here. So it's just that little raised part here. So the last thing you want to do is to make sure you go to a 10-day follow-up. I know all the rabbit sanctuary rabbits have a 10-day follow-up that I'm aware of, and she had her 10-day follow-up today actually. So I think that's important because we're just pet owners. I'm not a vet, you're probably not a vet. We don't really know what we're looking for except for what they tell us. And so we're just kind of learning as we go along, which is why I'm sharing all this information with you. So I think it's really important that we go to a vet to check, because we might be like, yeah, that looks fine, and it's maybe not fine because we don't know the little tiny things to look for Or we may be like, oh, it looks really bad, I don't know, oh, I'm not sure, it doesn't look terrible, but maybe it's not healing quite right. Going to that follow-up appointment, they'll be able to say, yes, it's all good, it's fine, they're on the road for a great recovery. Or they might be able to say, oh, yeah, it is a bit red or a bit swollen, give them this. And that's why I think it's really important to go to the 10-day follow-up. And then any other questions you may have to ask, you can ask them there. So the last thing I want to talk about is a bit of the worry and anxiety about getting your rabbit desexed. I mean, they seem so little. I have this bunny who's not even 1.5 kilos, just going under this surgery. And she's tiny and she's sensitive because she's a rabbit. What if something goes wrong? What if she doesn't make it? All those thoughts go through your head. And I think for me, I had to rationalize with myself, yes, maybe there's a couple of stories that I've heard out there where something has gone wrong and the rabbit hasn't made it. But then I see all these other rabbits at the sanctuary that have come in from terrible situations, or they've been a litter of babies, and you see the photos of them, how they're growing up, or you see their before, and they've just come in, and you know that they've got to have all their vet work done, including desexing, before they're ready to go. And they make it, they get adopted out, and they're fine, and they have their surgery, and they're all good. And so I think majority of the time, that's the outcome. And I think as scary as it is, there's always cases where something goes wrong, and that can be the case for a kitten or a puppy just as much as it could be for a rabbit, I think, particularly when you're talking about the difference between a vet and a rabbit savvy vet. Yeah, if you go to just a vet who's not as experienced, then maybe the risk is higher. But I think if you go to a rabbit savvy vet who basically does desexing of rabbits all the time, then I think you're pretty safe. I can't promise that nothing is going to go wrong, but I think you're pretty safe. And you can even ask the vet, have you done this lots before? And ask them questions if you're worried. I mean, it's their job to help you and your pet, and they obviously, hopefully, want to make you feel comfortable. And if you don't feel comfortable, talk to someone else. Find another vet that you are comfortable with taking your rabbit to. If there's no other rabbits around in your household and you've just got one, then there's no rush within the next couple of days to get it done. So take the time to talk to the vets that you need to talk to until you feel comfortable with one, and go ahead and get your rabbit desexed. Remember, it's completely normal to be worried. We love them. They're adorable and they're fluffy and they have so much amazing personality. So it's normal to be worried, but at the end of the day, it will probably be fine. That's it for this video. I hope something was helpful for you, and I hope you enjoyed Leia running around and doing whatever she's been doing in the background. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!